Hello, welcome to Andertons TV. My name is Jet Duxbury. Oz is behind the camera. And this is the Polyend Synth. In a rarity, someone sent me a synthesizer before I sat down to play it. Thank you, Polyend. But unfortunately, they hadn't counted on the fact that I can't use other people's resources to learn about it. So this following video will be what I learned about it in an afternoon. Let's freaking go. I learnt that the Polyend Synth is in fact a synth. Not only one synth, but it can be 3 synthesizers, and you can play it with these pads, a 5x12 grid of pads that can either control 1 synth, 2, or 3 at once, with lots of different engines in there for different types of synthesis, effects and whatnot. Let's work from an initial patch. I can show you what a normal person, well, not normal, but what I learned in an afternoon. Here we go. So we're gonna go scene, init, cool, and this is how it'll be. Same sound everywhere, textbook initial vibes. One thing I want to do is set out the grid how I want it, and I found that if I click this in and go to grid, you can change the layout here. One thing you see on the screen, there's the line there and it's delineated on the screen there with the line. These knobs line up with what's on the screen, and I settled into that. After about 10-15 minutes I got used to it, and hopefully I'll prove I can remember it today. 3 device layout. If I change this, look, 3 devices vertically, and then first, second, third device. So let's go 3 devices vertically, and I'm going to endeavor to set up a bass, something chordy and paddy, something leady. That's my goal. And you'll see here, scale. We can instantly put this in a scale. I'm going to go for Dorian. That's my faves. And in this middle section here, I'm going to change this to chord in scale and change the chords to minor. We're going to click that in. And then when I go to synths, here's an important step, is that you'll see the voices at the top there. There are 8 voices. We choose how to allocate them. It took me a while to get my head around because I was like, oh, I don't know what's going on here, but it makes sense. So here I'm going to play 1 note at a time because I want to play bass. In the middle, I'll give myself all of the 4 voices, and maybe I'll give myself a few more. Cool. Just for shits and gigs. Here we go. 5 voices. And now, hopefully, when I play these, you can hear I'm getting chords because I changed that voice assignment. So that's really important, I found, in the setup. The other bit here was choosing the octave. So a bit dirgy there. Let's go and make sure that this is up an octave and that's up 2. So chords, chord. Now we need to change some sounds. How do we do that? Let's get back to the main screen. And here's a core tenet of the synth. That yellow here, green, response to there, blue to there, and that is each engine or synth. How do we see that? If we want to change the yellow section, we go shift and preset, engines, and then you can choose or think of the engines as completely different styles of synthesis or keyboards in an imaginary rack of synthesizers. A quick rundown, ACD is monophonic classic single oscillator synths, analog synths. FAT is vintage warm lush poly synth. VAP is another poly synth, virtual analog. Some interesting ones, WTFM is a unique 2-operator FM synth with a feedback system. Some of these engines have quite, to me, idiosyncratic and unique features within the actual engine screen, not in the modulation. Sometimes you might even find an LFO in there, and I think these have been carried over some of their other products. PHZ, which is phase distortion like the classic Casio ZZ synths. Physical modeling, wavetable and grain engines are in there. I'm gonna keep it simple for a bass with that single oscillator one, so I'm gonna say yes to you, mate. Click that in, and I'm gonna find a bass sound. These are all different presets in there. Let's have a little look. Triangle sub. Solid bass. Cool. Got a solid bass sound there. pretty hot. One thing I remembered today from yesterday was I probably want to turn down those global levels. So I'm just going to give myself a bit of headroom and turn each one of these down. We'll come back here because this is where we're going to do effects. Nice, we're back there, that's good. Back to the engine, got a bass sound. Now let's choose this middle chordy sound. So I'm going to hit green. Now I'm editing this bank in the middle, if that makes sense. Shift, preset, choose the engine. Let's go for the fat engine, which is a Polyend Synth, they're saying. And I'm going to try to find some chord sounds. Cool. Let's choose a plinky lead sound with maybe a weirder engine. So if I go back here, blue, now I'm going to edit this block. Shift, preset, engine. I'm into the Casio sound at the moment. Artist called McGee, digging it. So I want to see if this can copy it. PHZ. And let's hear what some of the presets are on this. That's my vibe. So we've got already 3 different engines spread across. Here's my bass. Here are my chords. Here that's probably a bit hot, so I'm going to turn it down. And then here's my twinkly leads. Mixer, still a bit hot. I'm going to turn these down. And it does seem to be based on the sound, yeah, as it should be. I think you're going to be in this mixer bit a lot, just adjusting levels if you're going to do this type of thing. Cool. So now how do we edit them? I have this dream of, and yesterday I was jamming with this Oz, because I set it to a scale. If I go like this, so the chords will, the bass note will track that. But it'd be nice to have them have a longer release and program it like a synth, right? So how do we do that? Let's go back to this engine, this first one, yellow, because I want to work on the bass. I'd love it to release a bit longer after I've hit the note. So how do we do that? ADSR. If we tap it, you can see I've got envelope for the filter, envelope for the amp. So on here, let's see if we increase the release and get what we want. Lasting a bit longer, but when I hit ADSR, if I put the release on the filter, hopefully, and a bit more decay, let's see what happens. Already I'm there. We're going to work on each little bit and then hopefully it comes together at the end. We'll see. I want to work now on the middle one, so I've hit that green one. And what I like is what it stays in the appropriate screen when you're working between models. And that I was like, oh, that's cool, because it kind of makes me have a workflow of I want to adjust the envelope of every synth in there. So on to this next one. Same, I'd love a bit more release when I've let go of the pad and maybe something happening when I'm holding it. So let's flick it to the envelope, crack the release up. Back to that filter a lot, because again, it doesn't matter if we change the amp envelope, the filter's closing before it. So we want to kind of match that up. Even more. Back to this envelope, bit more release. And I want it still one octave higher. So if I go back to, click this in, grid, change the octave. Now we're in high, and we could just hold one note. And it's so much fun. We've got those 2 sounds. Let's work on the twinkly sound up here. Hey, it needs a lot of work. Let's go in, and this time I'm not gonna work on the envelope. We'll just see what we can do with effects. How do we do that? We hit a mixer underneath in a slightly different font. It says effects. So if I go shift effects, I can choose the effect. We've got modulation, delay and reverb for each synth engine. We assign those here in the mixer with these sends. If you're used to that on a desk, if that makes sense. So if I want more delay and reverb on this sound, we can see that, turn these knobs. So I'll crank these right up. Let's just max them out and see what happens. Cool, I'd like a bit more going on in the delay. It seems like nothing's going on there. So Shift, Effects, tap that over the delay, and we can see we can adjust the delay settings. Bit more feedback, there's no feedback on there, so here we go. So let's see what happens. And you can hear it clipping, right? This is what I found yesterday. You just got to manage the levels, basically. I found that I was in here quite a bit. Let's turn these down so we can hear the lead again. It would be nice now to get some movement into the sounds using an LFO, and this brings up something that I'm not too hip to yet, but I'm guessing it's this way, which is if I hit Shift Mod, you'll see that in the blue section here, I've got what looks like a traditional modulation matrix style, which is saying what the source will be. So in this case, LFO1, and where do I want it? Oh, I want it to do filter cutoff and how much. But we'll see if I switch to the yellow synth, I have different modulation options that are kind of baked into that engine. So on the green synth in the middle, where maybe I want to get some movement, I don't have to set the source and destination. I just have these pre-designed LFOs as I understand it. Yeah, that's it. So let's turn this up and see what happens. And let's see if it's connected to this LFO. So, cool. I'll go back to Shift Mod and then turn this down. Not the craziest demo, but you can see that, yeah, you've got 3 synths in there and you've got all those different engines that you can combine. In terms of how it feels to play, when I click this in, if I go to the settings, I've got this just set how it is out of the factory, but I found this quite interesting. For example, on this sound, it's, I've got a dig in quite a lot. I'll turn down the effects just so you can hear what I'm going to talk about now. As you can see here, effects, and we just turn this down a bit. One thing I found cool was tapping this in, going to the settings and changing the sensitivity of the grid. So delicate. It's almost like you've got that thrill of just lightly brushing it, but sonically I found like actually just fixing. If I go to that mixer, turn that middle bit down. So you can adjust the sensitivity of the pads in the settings here, and also a very unique thing on this pitch bend, which is there's a pitch bend knob here, and it works by turning it. I'll just show you. So if you wanted to pitch bend, and you can adjust the speed at which that snaps back, I think that'd be really, because I can imagine with a drum machine or other bits of gear, this really serves to give you an arsenal of 3 pretty much any types of the classic types of synthesis you want, and how you integrate that into your setup was going to be, there's so many options here. If I go back to this settings again, you can see on the synths it says voices, MIDI channel and local mode. So if you wanted to play that with another keyboard. It comes in the box with not only the USB power, but also MIDI adapter for these MIDI in and out here. Also got an SD card with a separate USB card reader, and in there you'll get a voucher to, once it's up and running on their website, to download extra sets made by artists. They weren't available to me at this time. But other cool thing is that I lived the dream last night. I was there, I had to learn this, but I wanted to watch them on TV, and just with a USB power bank, sat there for a few hours, eating crisps, and wiping my hands in between. Wipe, play. But it was the dream. I was just sat playing 3 synths at once. Just sat on my sofa playing. It was pretty cool. One thing I haven't shown you is it can arpeggiate. So these chords, let's get a bit of movement in there. We're going to go sequence, get on the green, on. But what I found, I love the scale thing because you can play. Everything's just locked together, you can't make mistakes. Dope. Let's turn off the ARP on this one and see if we can program a little sequence. This could all be clocked, but as the sequence, as I understand it, it says play, record, record. Let's put in some notes. And then play, and then it. Yeah, not doing anything you could incredibly nice musically, but with a bit of thought. And this scene thing, you could imagine maybe just with a drum machine, you've got bass, chords and lead with a drum machine synced up, and the ability to switch scene and have 3 completely different types of synthesis and it be playable. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, because it'd be interesting to see what the community says about this when it's out in the wild. To me, it's what some of things like Launchpad. I've tried the Novation Launchpad and other types of controllers which had synthesizers in, but they never had a screen. I felt I had to learn too many button combinations. Whereas with this last night, with no other resources other than the manual, I got this far and could set up 3 synths and demo it to you. I hope that made sense. I've no idea how much it costs. What does it feel like? It's really not heavy. It's not. It was no problem to power. I just grabbed any old power bank, stuck it in there, and I do feel the sounds come alive with the effects. And maybe we'll play through some sounds now. You can just have a listen. But thanks so much for watching. Thanks also for being here. Polyend Synth. Hopefully I'll revisit this in the future once it's out, and maybe even talk to some people that know a lot more about it than me. I'll see you soon.